Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, I do cauliflower. Today is all about cauliflower, cavolfiore in Italian. And the Italians love to cook cauliflower in a lot of different ways. But today I'm going to do a little departure, because who ever heard of a cauliflower pizza? Yeah, don't tell the Italians. But we're going to make kind of a pseudo margherita, and the cauliflower is going to become the crust. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, you buy yourself a nice big head of cauliflower, because you need about 6 or 7 cups of cauliflower that you have chopped up, or as they say today, riced. Cut it up so that it looks like small grains of rice. And you can do this in a bowl with a knife, or you can do it in a food processor. I think the food processor is a whole lot easier to do. But anyway, you need about 6 to 7 cups of the riced cauliflower. And then what you want to do is you want to get some of the water out of it, because you want to make a crust that's going to really hold up, that you can cut. So what I do is I spread it out on a baking sheet, on a piece of parchment paper, put it in the oven around 350 for about 20 minutes or so, just to dry it out a little bit. So this has been toasted, so to speak, and so we have our 6 to 7 cups, and with it we're going to add some eggs, because we need something that is going to bind this. So 2 eggs will do it, 2 eggs in a bowl. And this idea came to me because there are so many people today who have a problem with gluten. So let's just break up the eggs a little bit, and we're going to give them a little salt and a little pepper, and mix that in with our cauliflower. And then to help bind it even further, we want to have some cheese. And today I'm using Asiago cheese. Cheese that comes from the Veneto. This is a cow's milk cheese, and we've grated it up now, and it's perfect for this. You could also use a Parmigiano for this if you wanted to. So about 3/4 of a cup of Asiago grated, or a cup, however much you want. And then about 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs. This is going to help dry this crust out. So it's really easy. So you mix this all together, and then we're going to form this into a pizza. And you can use a pizza pan for this. If you wanted to do this on a stone, a pizza stone in your oven, you could, with a piece of parchment paper and a peel. That's another way that I've done it. But I think it makes a really respectable pizza when you think about it. So once you've got it mixed together, and I'm gonna put the spoons down now because I have to use my hands. You wanna get it pretty much amalgamated together. And then the toppings can vary, but as I said, we're going to make this a pseudo margherita. So a margherita means that it's going to be topped with tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, and basil. I haven't tried this on any of my Italian friends yet, but you know, you never know. Okay, so once it's all kind of mixed together and clumping a little bit, then you want to get out a pizza pan. Now you could make this a round pizza. You could do it in a rectangular pan if you wanted to. The thing is that you want to be able to get this into a crust that you can cut. So let me set that aside and get my pan, which is right here. And I'm going to put it on parchment paper to help the heat go under the crust. So then you just take this and put it on the parchment paper. And then you just press it out. You can make it as thin or as thick as you would like. I like it fairly thin because in Italy, of course, you know, a pizza is a personal thing. You don't really share the pizza that you order. You order it for yourself, and it's usually a dinner plate size, so it's about 10 inches in diameter, and it's supposed to be just for you. So you can make this as thick or as thin as you want, but you really want to compact it down Get it into a nice rounded shape along the edges. And you want to put your oven on now at 400 degrees, because now what we have to do is bake this blind. We want to bake this blind first before we put the toppings on, because we want to make sure that this is going to set up. Looks like a pizza crust to me. No one will ever know. So in it goes. Got to keep your eye on it. I would say about 25, 30 minutes. And I have one that I did a little earlier for you. And you can see how nice and crusty that is already. So look, you can lift it up, see? Like a crust, it's not going to fall apart. Now, this is good, so I'm gonna set that aside for a minute while I prepare the toppings. So let me get this out of the way. So for the toppings, we're gonna do the pseudo margarita, but you could do anything. So let's have some tomatoes. So for this, we want fresh tomatoes. You could do cherry tomatoes, or you could do plum tomatoes. If you didn't want to do this, you could do tomato sauce even, a thin layer of tomato sauce. And when I cut tomatoes, I like to use this kind of a knife, tomato knife, that doesn't rip the tomatoes. It does a nice, clean cut. So get yourself, a cup or so of cut cherry tomatoes, or plum tomatoes, or tomato sauce. Because a margarita, as we know, a margarita is tomatoes, cheese, and basil. So there are the tomatoes. So now we need some cheese, and here we're using, of course, mozzarella. So mozzarella is a pasta filata cheese. It's a spun cheese. It's a fresh cheese. And in Italy, you can have it as a cow's milk cheese or buffalo milk cheese. It's very delicate. And all we really want to do, again, is use that cheese knife to just kind of tear it or shred it into little pieces so that it's going to melt very quickly on the pizza. So you just, doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's all going to melt. And then at the end, after we just about take this pizza out of the oven, when it's ready, that's when we'll put the basil on. We don't want to put the basil on with these ingredients because the basil will burn. So we really want that to be something that's going to permeate and really infuse the flavor. So now, let me get the pizza crust back here. There it is. And it's simple. Cheese. But it's a nice variation on a margherita. So there's the cheese. We're going to give that a little salt because mozzarella by itself is pretty mild and bland. And then we're going to put the tomatoes on randomly here and there. You want to have some olive oil handy. Is this looking nice? Your friends are going to be very, very surprised when you say, oh, come on over for pizza. And when they taste it, they go, well, how'd you make the crust? You say, oh, it's cauliflower. They're going to be very, very impressed. Okay, there are the tomatoes. And they're all going to sink into that. And then we want to go with a little bit of olive oil. Just a little drizzle over the top. Brush it here and there. And that's it. Now it can go in the oven. So it looks good to me. Maybe a little pepper, huh? Although that isn't classic for a margarita, but okay. It's ready to go back in that oven. So we got to keep our eye on this. I'd say about 25, 30 minutes, and then that's when I'll put the basil on it. In it goes. And we'll keep our eye on it, and then we'll put the basil on. So now what I want to make for you is something that Italians really love as an antipasto, or they'll have it in the summertime, you know, when it's really hot. Fried cauliflower done in a batter, a yeast batter. So here we have cauliflower again that's been steamed. You see how nice and tender it is. So you want florets like that, large ones. So in a bowl, a cup of warm water, a teaspoon of yeast goes in. Just mix that around. And the nice thing about this is that we don't have to wait for this to really proof or anything. We can use it right away. So you want to mix in the yeast. Make sure the water is warm though. And then you want an egg at room temperature. Egg goes in. And then about 1.5 cups of flour. So you're making something like a pancake batter. So this will coat those florets. And when I do this, if I'm not doing this for you under a time limit, I usually make this batter up the day before, and then I put it in the refrigerator covered, and I let it sit overnight. It imparts an even better flavor because it retards the flavor, becomes more like of a sourdough flavor. It's really good. But you see how thick it is, and it's really ready to use. But we want to give it a little bit of flavor too, so some salt. A little salt goes in, and a good grinding of nutmeg. If you don't like nutmeg, you can just leave this out. And you mix all of that in. Okay. Now what you have to do is get some oil ready in a pot. And for this, I like to use a seed oil. Either use a grapeseed oil, use a sunflower oil, which will be very good for keeping this very light. If you used olive oil, it would be just too heavy. So we have our mixture, and we have our florets. So now what we have to do is put these a few at a time in the batter. We've got the oil heating up on the stove, and you want that oil at least at 375 degrees. And you want to coat these florets in the batter. Okay? Get them coated and fry them. And then you want to drain them on some paper towel. And then I like to just serve them with lots of coarse salt to get that little crunch as well. So let me put a couple more in there just to get those coated. And now we can take this over and get them going. Here's our hot oil. So now I like to use a slotted spoon to take the extra batter off before I put it in there. And I want that to really get nice and brown. So be careful, because when you're dealing with hot oil, you want to be very careful that it doesn't splatter. So these are going to pop up. They're going to be golden brown. You take them out onto a paper-lined bake sheet and let them cool a little bit. And then you just serve them like that. You could use a sauce with it, or just, as I say, I like them with coarse salt just over the top. So now we have cauliflower that's been steamed and riced, meaning that it's in very small pieces. And because it is like this, we can make something called cauliflower mashed potatoes. Again, it's nothing that you would find in Italy, but it's an interesting way to use a vegetable that Italians love. So it's very soft. So I like to do it in my big mixer here. You could use a food processor or a blender. You have to do it in batches. So I've got the cauliflower. I'm going to add some butter. A little butter goes in there. And you can either use milk or cream for this. A little milk. And you can make this whatever consistency you like for mashed potatoes. So then I put my top on. then I add more butter and more milk and continue on like this until I have smooth mashed potatoes. And I want to tell you something. People who hate mashed potatoes are going to love these. They're not even going to know that this is cauliflower. If you hate cauliflower, you're going to love this as mashed potatoes. Look at how lovely that is. It's so velvety. And I use it as a base for fish or for a stew. I've served it to people who say, really? That's cauliflower? I say, yes, it is. And you just continue on like that. So let me add some more. And then you can flavor it with some nutmeg, some parsley. You could add cheese to it, whatever you'd like. So in 3 additions or so, if you're using a gadget like this, more butter, more milk or cream, and a little motorized action. Okay. There's the rest. Look at that. Doesn't that look delicious? Yeah. Now, once you have that, and look at how fluffy that is, so many things you can do with it. It's almost saucy. So, then you can add some parsley, salt, pepper. A little nutmeg would be nice in this too. Serve it with anything, fish, with meat, pork, chicken. And just give it a nice stir. Oh, it's almost like eating ice cream, but it's cauliflower. So there you have it. 3 ways to use cavolfiore. How do you make cavolfiore, cauliflower, a hero in your kitchen? Well, you make these recipes. And we started right here with a cauliflower pizza where we made the crust out of cauliflower. And now we topped it with some cheese, mozzarella cheese. We've got cherry tomatoes and basil at the end. Perfect for those people who are doubters about cauliflower. And then one of Italian's favorites right here, cavolfiore fritte, so fried cauliflower. And so we made a paste of yeast and water and flour and a little bit of nutmeg. And then we took our cauliflower that we had steamed and dipped it in that batter to coat it and then fried it in a little bit of seed oil. You want to serve that with coarse salt over the top. And here is a really great idea for cauliflower. This has taken the world by storm, and that is cauliflower mashed potatoes. It may not be a hero in Italy, but it certainly will be in your kitchen. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao.
Quello lì tondo, grande.
Sì, tondo grande. 50, tutto a mano. Now, she's probably, Giovanna, si chiama Giovanna. Giovanna is probably, scusa signora, is probably one of the very few lace makers who's still here on Isola Maggiore making the lace. Look at how fine it is.
Lei la guida signora, no?
Sì, no, io non sono una guida, faccio un programma per televisione. Sì.
Allora mi rivedo.
Sì, she wants to see the program. Look how fine it is. Very fine. It's all very fine work. So if you, this is the type of thing that you should buy when you are visiting Italy, because it's these people are going to be gone. She's one of the few that's left making this. Beautiful. I love the way she has it just on her chair. This is her show, her little store. Isn't it beautiful? E quanto costa questo? 20 euros. Yes, you see, she said this is for your little pocket, you know, on your jacket. A dying art. And of course, it was all started because these women also mended fishing nets. And because they had the knack of mending fishing nets, they were introduced to this. And they could easily pick up the skill of this lace making. E si chiama questo lavoro?
Pizzo Irlanda.
Pizzo Irlando, meaning Irish linen, Irish work. Oh my God, look how small that is.
Questa
See?
è una di queste.
Okay, so this is this piece right here that she's working on. La signora vorrebbe queste due.
Sì, va bene.
One for each daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And I think I will frame that.
We're going to make her day. We are making this woman's day. There are only 3 of them left doing this wonderful, very artistic lace making. She and her sister make them, and I asked her, where are the other women? Because a few years ago when I was here, they were all lined up here working, and she said, well, there are very few of us now, maybe 3 or 4. They don't come out in the morning so much. They might come out later in the afternoon. So. At the end of a long day, in Deruta, you have to make a decision because this is a town of ceramiche, ceramics, beautiful ceramics. You can find them in all kinds of designs, from the very Renaissance-looking ones to very modern-looking ones. And of course, the colors are so rich and deep. And Deruta is the capital in Umbria for getting ceramics. So there is street after street after street of these beautiful works of art, all hand painted. And it's just that you have to make a decision. Non è facile.
You see here, that Igle's claw has a hook, which is the gospel. See, here's the evangelist.
Whenever I am in Italy, I always try to practice my Italian, which I'll admit is not perfect. But, so I read a lot of signs. Here's a typical sign. And it says strada, which means street, interrotta, interrupted, rotta means broken. The street is being repaved because of the workers. So, strada interrotta causa lavori. Whenever somebody dies in Italy, they put up a poster. And here in Foligno, we're walking down just a little side street, and you can see all of the recent deaths in the town. And they actually leave the signs up for a long time, because here, if you notice, this was Tuesday, the 13th of September, 2011. That's a very recent one. And they'll leave the signs up for a while before they take them down, so that the people in the town are notified that maybe they are their friends, or just that this is the way it is done in Italy. It's a custom to do this. And I think it's very nice, a very nice gesture, because then everybody who walks by, even me, I don't know any of these people, but you can say a little silent prayer that they are resting in peace.